And welcome to Music is Not a Genre, the interview edition. For those of you new to the Music is Not a Genre family, let me tell you a little bit about it. It's a podcast in which I find any reason to discuss music, whether that's something from my collection or something that I have created, something that someone else has created, and I make connections between that music, my music, other people's music, other things in the world that have nothing to do with music. I do my best to make connections where none seem to be, because the idea is genres are labels which are barriers to understanding the truth of music in general and of many things beyond the world of music. I am fortunate that I often also get to discuss this with someone else. And today I have with me Shok. He is a music producer, multi-instrumentalist, songwriter, and producer, host, and DJ of the popular Twitch channel MyLiveTube. He's a member of the electro swing band Red Light District. He's also the creator of the Not-So Ebb spoof on Nitzer Ebb, which was a huge international pandemic hit. He's one of the founders of Newgrounds.com, which was one of the first online entertainment portals. There are other credits, and we will get to the ones I mentioned and those other ones too later on. But first of all, Shok, how are you?
I'm well today, thank you. How are you?
Good, very good, thanks. It's good to see you. Yeah, as I mentioned to you in the pre-show, and I mentioned to people now and then, if those of you have been following this interview edition, you know that my first question, you know what my first question is, and this may be a tricky one for us, and I'm curious to kind of follow the thread here, but can you, to the best of your knowledge, tell me how we know each other?
All right, well, last year, my friend said, hey, and I got a link from him saying, hey, here's a YouTube video about an old album of yours. I was like, what? And so I went there and I saw you discussing it. So that is how we were sort of introduced, or maybe even reintroduced or whatnot. But that is how we have come to connect. And I said, hey, how you doing? And here we are. And thanks for checking out my old music back 30 years ago. It was released 29 years ago, basically.
Yeah. It's it was one of one of the other editions of my podcast is like I said, I'll take something from my collection. At the time, I was going through my vinyl collection, and there were a couple that I couldn't find all that much information on. And one was a Mega Mix 86, which was kind of awesome, actually. I was able to track down some info on that. But then the other one was yours. And so people know what we're talking about. In 1992, you released an album called First Impressions of My Idiosyncrasies, I think it's called. And I would like to know more about that, because from my memory, which is not all that great, the reason I have that album, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I believe that there was some kind of an album, either just a regular party or an album release party, and a friend who knew you took me to your house or some studio, which was outside of Philadelphia, and I met you there and you handed me the album, and that's how I have it. But that's all I remember, really. Do you know anything about that?
These are all lies.
Oh, no.
And I've never done music in my life. Thought we were talking about computer marketing analytics today. No. So yeah. So I had done a couple of cassette things, and that First Impressions was sort of like an introductory / greatest hits, get to know me kind of thing. That's why it was called First Impressions. So it's like your first impressions of what the music was. So it was three different sort of rough things, but it's set up in a more formal vinyl and cassette release. that wound up charting on all these different things. I did not expect. I didn't know enough. I didn't really know much about the industry at the time, and I went up on all these college radio stations. That thing played. So I wound up getting gigs because of that, and at colleges, because they were like, you're in our top 10. I'm like, I'm in your top 10. I didn't understand that, but I never played a bar or anything like that prior. I mean, my first gig was playing at a college in front of almost 1,000 people. I mean, that had known my music. It was pretty weird. So it was kind of a weird first step, but I used to have a lot of parties and gatherings because I always like to share music and entertainment with people. So I probably had a party and we might have talked or something about music, and I was like, "Here's my record." Who knows?
Guess so. Yeah,
that was
a long time ago, and that's why
29 years ago.
Yeah, listen, I don't remember things that happened 5 years ago or a year ago, so I know a lot of what I'm thinking is pretty shoddy. What's that?
But what did I have for breakfast?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. See, now you've got my brain stuck because I'm not going to remember that either. It's way too early.
Did I finish on season 2, episode 1, or was it episode 2? I don't remember. Let's watch it again. And then halfway through, you're like, well, I did see all of episode 1. Let's watch episode 2. I'll be caught up. And then you're like, as a matter of fact, I've seen episode 2 and 3. I've seen it all. Okay, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And what's worse,
that happened to me recently.
Yeah. And I've done that, and then I'll even, this is terrible, but I'll watch a show and go to tell somebody about an episode and realize I don't really remember the characters' names.
That can happen.
I just make impressions of what's happening. They don't quite latch on, I guess.
I have a good one about that. This is a sidetrack for a second, but at one point, I live in LA, and I've been out here for over 20 years now. And at one point, I had, and I'm not going to remember the name of the movie, but my friend who's here in the studio, he'll remember because we've talked about it a lot of times and how ridiculous this scenario is. But I'd been on the East Coast cleaning out some stuff, and my father lived not very far from where I was, and my friend Paul had come to grab me. We got back to, I'd been visiting my father. I went back to my place to get more of my stuff organized before I was leaving town. And my, what is it? Oh, yeah. And so I said, when I got back, I said, my friend Paul said, "Oh, you look, your dad really wanted to spend more time with him." I'm like, yeah, I'm like, maybe we could watch a movie with him, or something. So we go back over to where my dad lived, and he was like, "Oh, of course, I'd love to see you more." And so we get over there, and he's going through the movies that he has, and he's going through these different movies, and he gets this one movie, and he's mentioning all the people in the cast, and I'm like, wow, and Dan Aykroyd's in it too, and who else is in that movie? Chevy Chase. Demi Moore, John Candy, yeah. John Candy, all these people are in this movie, and I'm like, wow, it must have been a really cool movie that I forgot about. And of course, but see, that gives it away. But so I'm like, sure, let's watch this. So I'm sitting there, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, this is kind of an interesting movie, but it's a little slow. I'm waiting for something to happen, and then finally, Digital Underground shows up, and I'm like. And rest in peace, Shok G, who just passed, last month.
Yeah.
But he, I realized that this was one of my least favorite movies of all time, and one of the only movies in my life I've ever where I've walked out of a theater. And I've seen some doozy films, and prior to the pandemic, I would probably see 2 or 3 movies in a theater a week. Like I'm a cinephile.
Nice.
I am all about movies. In fact, I even though I've worked in music most of my life, it started off with film, and it's slowly getting back there, which I'm sure we'll discuss throughout this time together. But So I realized at this point, oh my God, this movie blows, and I forgot about this. But Paul's enjoying himself and whatnot, and and my dad is here, so I'll watch it. And then my dad kind of took off for a little while, and he was into the kitchen doing something, whatever. And then the movie finally ends, and I just turned to Paul and I said, you know, I've seen this movie before, and I hated this movie. And Paul goes to me, he goes, what? He goes, I hate this movie too. I'd forgotten I'd seen it as well. And then, but he's like, but I thought you were enjoying it. So we went up seeing this crap film. Anyway, it was called Nothing But Trouble. So just for anybody out there, do not see it. It is nothing but trouble.
It is, yeah, aptly named.
That's my long-winded story of
memory.
Yeah, my long-winded story of sometimes you.
I guess, yeah.
Anyway,
I've heard of that film actually. Well, and so I want to, I mean, maybe this is the wrong road to go down then, because we're talking about faulty memory, but there may not be much more to mine from what happened back in 92, but I'm too curious about it to not ask. Now, I thought that the person who took me to this party knew you, and I don't know why. I don't know why I would think that. And it's a friend of mine. His name
probably did if it was a part. Yeah, I'm sure they did.
His name is, I think the friend I'm thinking of is a guy named Ian Silverman. And if it doesn't ring a bell, then I'm probably wrong. That's not it. It's not Mike Smith either, is it? Very generic.
I think so.
Then that's one of those things where somehow I must have known someone who knew you, and we bumped into each other. And what's funny is I had been, and we're going to get to more of your history very soon, but I had been doing music for a few years at that point too, and had, you know, dabbled in electronic music, but then kind of started to shift more towards band oriented stuff and all of that. But I remember listening to what you did at the time and just being like super impressed, because this is around when, you know, oh, whoa, look at that. That's a big change. This is around when Nine Inch Nails had been around for a while, and Moby had been around for a while. Mm-hmm. And to me, it was this kind of world of electronic music.
I did shows. Yeah, I did a bunch of shows with Moby.
Oh, nice. Okay. Mm-hmm. And so I just remember being, you know, it made an impression on me what you were doing then, which you know, it was cool to revisit. When I did the podcast, I listened to the entire album again to kind of refresh my memory, and, you know, and enjoyed it. And then it's been great. You know, the fact that you contacted me through your friend was a bonus, because I couldn't find out all that much about you. So you know, talking directly with you, I could at least get all of the links and the new music that you've been doing and remixes and all of that, which, by the way, everybody, will share. All the links are below. Please click them and listen to what's there. There's some awesome music there. But that kind of brings me to the next question, which is, can you tell people your story, where you come from, why you're in music, just really anything that you feel is relevant or interesting or that pops into your head?
SpaghettiOs are filled with lots of salt. That's something interesting. No, I mean, I got into music. I always loved music, but it got to be more serious for me. I played drums, and I played a little bit of keyboard, and I played bass, and I had a guitar but didn't really play it. But I had a place to sort of record music onto a cassette, and started recording bands. Oh, sorry, I started recording my friends and me playing music together, and other people heard that, and they were like, "Can you record our band?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess so." And so I started doing that, and I started amassing some other gear. But I got into music because I was a huge lover of music, and I always loved new music and odd music and things that are hybrids, things that combine genres. I'm all about when it's not easily defined on what it is. That's what gets me excited. Um, Artists like Peter Gabriel and Future Sound of London, for example, or maybe even Sade. Massive Attack is another one where is it. First of all, what's the sound I'm hearing? Is that a live instrument? Is that something electronic? Is it processed? Is it something that's naturally occurring in nature? And if you're able to have expression on it, and it's able to move and live and tell a story and go somewhere, that really appeals to me. And I really enjoy when I can't box something in. I mean, there's something to be said for music that's boxed in too. I mean, if it's like house music and it has the 909 open hi-hat and the 909 kick drum and the 909 snare and the FM bass maybe, or and there's like a whole series of sounds that go along with house music, or drum and bass had that amen break, and then maybe some slow attacked sub bass kind of sine wave thing. Anyway, there's something to be said for music that's categorized, and I like that too. But there's something very exciting in terms of art when it's something that may borrow from places and that keeps the familiarity, but it breaks new ground. And I really that speaks to me in volumes. And so I don't know where I'm going with it, but
that's awesome. I mean, that
I got into music because I really, those things piqued my interest. And I had gone away to a school to do acting and got a lead role in something, and which was fun, but I was bored. And there was a rickety piano, and I started learning how to play all the songs I enjoyed from everything that came out on Mute Records and 4AD and all that kind of stuff. So we're talking everything from Depeche Mode to The Cure to Clan of Zymox and even Duran Duran or whatever. I mean, even though I was a huge fan of Peter Gabriel stuff, I was like, I don't even know how to recreate that. But, and I loved Prince, so there was all, and I had gotten a crappy sampler, and I had a drum machine, so I started trying to replicate with my little bit of gear how to recreate these sounds. And as time went on, I found ways to replicate the sounds of my voice because I didn't have all these crazy synths yet. And there was also a music store I'd go into, and they had the same sampler I had. So I would find their sampler, get a cable, run it to the keyboard that I wanted to sample, play notes on it, and sample it back in, and take that disc home because it fit on one floppy disk, and then and then load it and have that sound. Now all of a sudden I had this $5,000 synthesizer at my home, basically, because it was the sound. That was early on. That was 30 years ago, basically. But as soon as music started doing well for me, I started gathering a lot of synthesizers, real synthesizers, because people didn't want those anymore. They were trying to get these workstations and all that. And I just was like, I don't want a workstation. I'm not just a keyboardist. I play a lot of I'm playing instruments, and I want to manipulate. So I want to use these interesting sounds and do weird things with them, which is, I sort of do the same thing these days too, but I don't go out and buy crazy synthesizers anymore, but
right.
At least I don't think I do. Anyway, that's sort of the background. If that answers any question, or if I just was rambling, maybe I didn't have enough food today. I have no idea.
There's never enough food. You know what? The paths you take answered more questions than I even asked, which is cool. I like that you say that really there were the two kind of dichotomous things there, that music that can be clearly defined, there's a place for it, and it is important. And some great things, whether it is house or I don't know, bebop, or something that you kind of understand what the elements of that genre are, and to dive
Mhm.
deep into that and explore it without really going too far afield can be incredibly valuable. And I love that. But
Right.
I, of course, myself gravitate towards music that breaks new ground, or busts through walls that other producers might put there, other musicians might say. And what I've found over the years is that it's harder than it seems, because there's a point at which we define ourselves without knowing it, as people, as artists. And we think, oh, I'm going to step outside that wall and do this. Someone who doesn't know us, or who sees it from a distance, more objectively, will hear that and say, yeah, okay, that's kind of still you. And it takes a real kind of extension past every step you could think of to get to a point where you're actually challenging yourself enough to get outside of the box that you created for yourself. And we've been around a lot longer, so maybe the more you do it, the more of that you get. But did you feel through the because you've done remixes and you've done original material as well, and what how would you what kind of music do you mostly do now?
Well, talking about breaking out of a box and what defines you. I mean, I'm in several projects that I do, and there's you mentioned Red Light District earlier, which is a sort of what the kids are calling electro swing, but it's more than that. It's the live version of the band is depending on the time you see it, could be a 6 to 9 person band. In the studio, it's pretty much two of us. Sometimes I'll bring in an extra person on horns if I play trumpet as well, and trombone, but I don't play sax really. And I mean, like, not worth anything. And so I'll bring in people for that, and clarinet. But all the upright bass and drums and whatnot, piano, and all that's me. But that's very similar to you're taking a vibe from and cues from the 1920s, 30s, 40s, and maybe even 50s, but probably not, of jazz, classic jazz, cabaret, swing band music, and then throwing it into the future with a lot of what we do in that project.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So some of it might fall under trip hop, I guess, as well, but it's something different. It's a mixture of jazz. Well, that's one project. Then there's there's Zeitmal, which is the thing that you had heard, and that's still happening. And that's been always a blend of electronic stuff with a very kind of organic sort of rock kind of thing. So, more pop song structured in some of the music anyway, but more in more modern structured music. But lots of times influenced by world music and such, because lots of tribal percussion and stuff within there, and a lot of strange found sounds and whatnot. So that's Zeitmal. But then there's also Emmett Peel's, which is my experimental stuff, which is straight up just exploration through sounds and storytelling. It's almost like movie soundtrack work or ambient music with beats, I guess. Very, very ethereal. And then I started this thing called Lost Tapes, which was initially just a secret project that people didn't know it was me, and which was really interesting, especially when people were eventually telling me I need to check out this music. I was like, oh, okay. And that one's more of like a early new wave, maybe post-punk kind of music. Yeah. So these are all very different. I mean, I guess some of the post-punk stuff leads itself to the Zeitmal stuff as well, but it's way more stripped down and way more pop, I'd say, in a way. And so I have that, and then I started last year, which kind of brings us up to a little bit more of what I'm doing. I'll get to the remix thing in a second, but a friend had contacted me and said, "Hey," and I've done work for her before for commercial work, because I play a lot of instruments. It's quick for me to. Someone needs a cue for a song or whatnot, or a company says, "Hey, we need a music supervisor says, hey, I need spy music for 30 seconds." I've done that for like Nickelodeon. I did a bunch of stuff for them, and I did A&E, whatever. I did a bunch of different TV shows over the years, but when I'd done some work for her. So she said, "Hey, I'm working on a documentary. I would love a song or a couple songs for this." And as it progressed, I realized, okay, I guess I'm doing the whole soundtrack for the song, like for this documentary that she was working on. And it turned into a 33 song work, you know. So this soundtrack is massive, and the music for it. She said her cue in the beginning to me was, she's like, I know I'm not good with titles and genres, but I need what I guess would be called porno punk. Which, after she played me one song that she had in mind that she had heard, I was like, well, that's kind of funk, you know, kind of like a punky version of funk. So I as time progressed, a couple friends came on board with me because I thought it'd be interesting to collaborate with people, because I don't generally collaborate musically with a lot of people. And I tried doing very unusual miking techniques. And what you're seeing behind us right now is drums from that session. We've pretty much done all the principal recording for this documentary already, but there's a couple things that need to be retake. So instead of having 8 to 10 microphones on the drums, there's one overhead, which is a nice microphone. There's not my nicer kick drum mic, but an okay kick drum mic inside the kick, with another kick drum that got randomly used, and then back to back, it creates some weird tone. And then I have one room mic, which is actually the mic that we're on right now. And at one point, I was using this other mic that I have here, which is a simple 58, but using that in the room and then squashing all three together. So I was trying different techniques that I could get something that sounds like a band in a room playing together for the most part. And the music is very funk. And while I enjoy playing funk, I've never really released anything that's funk. And it made me, I broke out my initial bass guitar that I had when I was 17. That is a nice bass, but I never really used it. So I was using that, and I got really back into my horns and playing the horns, and picked up a lot of weird instruments along the way, and gear for this. And it's been a very interesting thing where you're mixing it in the box, like in the computer, but the recording of it is very much hands-on. And every time you hear strings or theremin or any kind of horn blast, it's not from a sample thing, it's an actual instrument being played. And I have a whole series of strange guitars and plucked instruments. And we brought in my friend Daniel, who also played trumpet on this, but he also brought in a charango, which I'd only heard of from a sample library. So I never even seen one. There's one sitting over here right now. And then we have a flautist, and even though I play cello, we had someone come in and play cello as well, and violin, and my friend Trevor on keys and organ, and it became, and we brought in our other friend who played French horn and saxophone, and that we brought in the world's foremost theremin player, which is Armin Ra. And then most recently, we brought in Lisa Kay from the band The Basement Jacks and the Bell Rays. Yeah. And so it's a really good collaborative effort. There's some other people too, we'll see, you know, but the point is that to me, I like breaking out of the box and challenging myself, because to me, it is art, and I don't look at music as a lot of people. There are people that look at music as a way to, nowadays, to become famous on the internet. At one point, it was a way to get to way to be noticed by the opposite sex or the same sex, whatever you're interested in, and or to gain attention, or to make $1. And to me, it was always a passion thing because I wanted to do music because I was a huge fan of music, and it moved me so much that I wanted to be able to replicate that because I loved it so much and wanted more of those same things. Like whether it was a song by, Aha, or if it was something by like Pink Floyd, to be able to find the ways to create those kind of sounds and tones and express yourself was a very freeing notion to me. So I'm always exploring and trying different techniques and setting things up differently to make myself break out of boxes. And I don't like to be confined. And sometimes, I should say, confined by genre. I like sometimes being confined by instruments is good because it makes you more creative. Some of the most creative stuff I ever did was when I just had that sampler and I had to just didn't have all the instruments. I had to figure out ways to make the sounds. And you get creative, you find ways to do it because you had to get that sound and you had to figure out how to replicate that sound. You might have to do it with your voice. I didn't have the crazy drum machines. I had to do it with my, that was a snare drum, and you'd sample that in. And I still do that to this day. I went out and got a ton of weird shakers along the way, and there's a whole bunch of them tambourines. And then at one point I got like a little egg shaker. But one of the shakers that's on the album is this thing right here, which is just, it's oregano.
Yeah. All right.
And that's used. So anyway, but going back to the other thing about remixing, I think I've remixed a folk artist named Mira. I've remixed Fisher Spooner, who are
I know them. Yeah.
It's like a pop, synth pop, maybe. I don't know what you call it. Dance pop.
Yeah.
Band? Electro pop.
Yeah.
I remixed Nick Cave. Nick Cave has a band called Grinder Man, and I was approached by them to do a couple remixes for them. I did Gautier.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of pop, I guess. That one song, his was definitely pop. To weird to old school industrial artists that came out asking for stuff like KMFDM, and then so it's been all over the place. I guess there's a lot of different bands I've done. I've remixed. There's and they all want. They don't say to me, "Hey, I want this genre." I think it's interesting. Remixes are an interesting way to market your music to a different audience. So, you might be a pop band that wants to have an underground house mix. You might be an industrial artist that wants a drum and bass mix. One of the things I like doing is taking something that's more electronic and turning it to something more organic. But generally, when I do remixes, I'll add a lot of live elements to it because I feel that that's missing in a lot of remixes, that there's something missing in the live interpretation,
Actually, that of everything you said, and you said a lot that or opening.
I can talk.
What's cool is that when you're talking, I think, oh, question, and then you answer the question I was going to ask anyway. But one thing that I think is interesting is that you said in kind of two different ways that you're almost kind of back forming a song that was electronic and somehow making it more organic. And you're right. I've heard a ton of remixes. I've done a few. I don't do much of that, but that's usually it goes the other way. So I find that very interesting. Yeah. It's
well, I think that's why I've gotten hired a lot to do these things, because they've liked my music. And Warren Ellis, for example, from Bad Seeds, was a fan of Red Light District, and they were reaching out for people to do remixes. And it turned out that the person who produces most of the Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds music is one of my best friends. And he's like, wait a minute, that can't be the same person that I know. And then it turned out that my friend, his name was also Nick, that he was right. It was me. And so, you know, that it's, but what we did is we did like it was like a weird accordion mix of one thing, and another thing was like a rock mix. I did 3 different mixes for these guys. And, but generally I'll do just one remix for someone. But I think that's why I get hired, because you're getting something different, you know. And I think I've been lucky that I play a lot of instruments that I'm able to, you know, I guess I spent a lot of time. I think because I'm offering something different than just, let's put it into this program that everybody else uses with the same sounds that everybody's using, and the same VST plugins, software synthesizers, plugins that everybody's using, and just manipulate what's there. I'm going to take the parts that were given to me, I'm just going to juxtapose them a little bit. Where a lot of times I'll sing backup or whatever, and turn it into a duet or something. I just like to create. So
yeah. I did a podcast last year that was based on a couple of Art of Noise albums, and
cool.
George Cran's Din Da Da, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It was. And I made the point that, and this is a complete opinion, but I made the point that it's, on one level, it is easy to make an electronic dance song. You have a beat, it's a certain tempo, you layer it with X or Y, then you're done. But to make it interesting, whether you're hearing 15 seconds of it or you're hearing 3 to 6 to 8 minutes of it, and really keep a listener's interest, beyond its intended purpose, which is often to be part of a mix for a club or what have you, to get people up to dance. When people are distracted doing other things, they may not need to hear detail. But that, to me, doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't have that detail in there. And what I've found in the little that I've heard from your, catalog even, is that you always find ways to make it interesting, when really some other person doing a remix wouldn't have to do that, because it'll serve the same purpose. But you go that next level.
Yeah. Thank you. I think about what I would want to hear and what gets me going. And I think dynamics and changes, and that's exciting to me. And I like things that aren't typical. Again, I like throwing, I don't know if you hear that train, it's pretty awesome.
I did. Yeah.
I like things that throw in something you weren't expecting, or maybe toss in a little something that you've known that references it, like so, some of the old composers of the late 1800s and early 1900s did that with their work, where they'd be playing along and then all of a sudden they'd throw in someone else's work.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So you had all these people that were in cahoots with Chopin and all these other people. Anyway, they would borrow from each other and sometimes add a little riff, which is like a lot of jazz artists do it. They'll throw in like, it'll be like da-da-da, and all of a sudden it'll be like, Mary had a little lamb, and you're like, what? Wait a minute, did I just hear that? And I do that with some things with sampling or recreating of something, so that you hear it. Like maybe all of a sudden a drum break comes around, and it's like, wait a minute, isn't that the Tears for Fears kind of triangle thing from Shout? Or wait a minute, isn't that drum break, that reminds me of a Phil Collins riff right there? Holy shit, there's the doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, and everybody knows that immediately, even if it's not the same sounds, but it gets you, and you're like, oh, there, and it gets exciting for a second. And that's to me, that's great. It's like if you're eating a soup and all of a sudden you taste the flavor and you're like, oh, I love that. It's delicious.
Yeah. Great.
So, but I mean, what's funny is I don't know if I don't sit here, like I'm doing a remix for this band called the Skate Nigs, who the singer, he was in the band Revolting Cocks, which were on Wax Trax, and he is known for singing the song Beers, Steers, and Queers, which is from what, 1990, I think. Anyway, or maybe 91. Anyway, and in the remix that I was given, it was, you know, there's a lot of live drums and samples and guitars and vocals and girl vocals with him, and I cut out everything except for his vocal, her vocal, and a couple of the guitar noises, and just turned it into this weird, like, breakbeat funk industrial thing, funk industrial. And but I wasn't like thinking, oh, I got to shift this thing up a bit. It's just, I think it's just how I've worked, because I know what I like to hear in a song myself, and I want to provide that for someone else. And it's the same with entertainment. You want to have an arc, and that maybe leads us to the next thing, which is the whole Twitch thing that's happened. Yeah. But it's just like any story you want to tell. You want to have a good arc in the story, and something that might be surprising. Maybe someone can walk away with something, having learned something new or have felt something different. And ultimately, you want people to feel something. That's the most important thing. I mean, you want to be able to feel something. And in the end of the day, it's like, you know, people can meet you and see you later, and they might not remember your name. They might not remember the details, but they'll remember how they felt when they interacted with you, whether it was a positive feeling or a feeling of, you know, gratitude, or if someone made you feel less than you are because they were a little bit demeaning or whatnot. People, that's strong. So I don't know. Maybe I'm getting a little deep here, but storytelling is important to me, and I want people to feel like they went on a ride when they listen to the music. You know, beginning, middle, and an end, with some kind of thing you can walk away from, like, you know, that was fun, or that was scary. So
that approach means a lot to me, because I think I read an article about there are, you know, there's apparently a new shift in certain kinds of pop music that are conceding the fact that most people don't listen to more than 30 to 60 seconds of a song, younger people, I guess. And there are people now just creating releases of songs that short. And that's fine, great. There's all kinds of music out there. That's wonderful. But I've always prized music that is a journey, that takes you on a ride, that has an arc to it, and that has an
fast food is what's happening to the art.
That what's that?
You know, a lot of art is becoming fast food. It's we want it now, we want it instantly, and we need to digest it immediately. And that's what's happened with art. You look at what's happened with, you know, you have, you know, whoever thought there'd be a TV, I mean, I don't know if they're still around, but was it Quibi? And it was like, let's do a 15-minute episode or 7-minute episodes of TV shows. Yeah. Like, you know, you can't even stick around for that long, you know. And I get it, we're all busy, but we're not all that busy. And but the fact that people are, you know, I get Instagram because that, not sorry, Twitter, because that came when it was old texting. When Twitter was not web-based, it was phone text based initially, and you only had a certain amount of characters in old text formations.
That's right.
And that's where the 140 came from, right? So, but that's changed. But you have these video files, and obviously we can upload way more because there's YouTube, but people have gotten used to just seeing you know, 30 seconds of something to a minute or something. And now then there was IGTV, they made it bigger, and TikTok can go however long it goes, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But you even had things like Vine, which was like, let's give you 6 seconds.
Yes.
To tell your story. And I get that there's a cool challenge to doing that, and it makes things concise, and maybe it makes you a better communicator in ways, but maybe it makes you a worse communicator because you can be misunderstood because people don't have all the information. And people today don't understand punctuation and basic grammar rules. So people misunderstand and get upset with each other because of that. And you have text wars with people, and someone's like trying to just say, hey, you look great today. And in the end, it turns out to be this fight where people stop talking. And it was like, what? I was trying to say you look great today. And it turned it, or good job on your meeting, your presentation at the meeting today. And then it turns into people saying, how dare you steal my, like, you know, who knows? But entertainment's become like fast food, and it's cheap and it's fast and it's in and out.
Yeah.
And most of it causes diarrhea. Anyway, and you need to get some heartburn medicine for it. And that's unfortunate. And the quality has gone down because we're able to produce these high quality, both with movies and with audio. We're able to use a little thing right here, like this little phone I have right here. We're able to shoot a movie on something like that. It smokes the quality of what was even out in theaters a few years ago. And with crazy audio quality, and you can edit the whole thing on your phone. And yet, and you can do all the recordings at home, and there's so much amazing lo-fi. I shouldn't even say lo-fi. There's a lot of hi-fi kinds of recording tech, instrumentation out there now. Their instruments have gotten really affordable. You have companies like Behringer who've either bought up the patents or figured out ways to get product, a $3,000 instrument down to $100.
Yeah.
There's software that lets you do everything. And we have all this stuff that gives you an output of a product that's extremely high quality, yet we're digesting or observing all this entertainment at such a low quality. Many people are listening to music on a streaming platform, which is streaming the music to you at a very low quality rate. They're watching the movies streamed on a low quality setting. A friend of mine has a movie theater, and we did some events with him for the MyLiveTube stuff. And he was telling me the quality that you get, it's pretty alarming what companies like Netflix and Amazon output to. It is so lo-fi. I was surprised, but because it still looks good on TV, good enough anyway. But most people aren't even doing that. They're looking at it on their phones or whatnot. And when people download music, they're downloading, if they're even going to buy it, they're going to download it as an MP3.
Yep.
You're generally not going to buy a wave. Some people do buy the waves, but you're getting a compressed version of something that has also been dynamically compressed and made louder so that it will sound better on a phone, just for the phone. So we're in a weird time of processed art and entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know. But
well, it's true. Yeah. And I guess you're right. There is a certain challenge to trying to produce things in that way. And I wonder if there will be a point at which there's a backlash, because everything cycles. There's always the ebb and the flow. You have a point when short pop songs are really popular, and then somebody puts out a Hey Jude or a Stairway to Heaven, and then all of a sudden everybody wants a longer song, and then it shifts back to punk, and everything's short and fast, and lo-fi, and then it goes
yeah.
No. And the hope, I guess, is that it doesn't stay here very long. Will this be the new normal, or is it just a phase?
Well, everything's been getting, at least online, entertainment that people want to watch is shorter. And the amount of people that tell me nowadays that they don't watch movies anymore, they just watch YouTube videos, is getting greater.
Yeah.
And the amount of people that watch just stuff on, their phone, like the social media stuff, it's pretty surprising.
It's a lot.
So I don't know. I don't know about the shift, if that'll go in a cycle. I'm not really sure at this moment. If people want the long form like they did, the amount of people that even prior to the pandemic happening that would go to theaters, it was getting very small because people can't even sit still because they got to check their phones. And it's amazing to me to find out the people that I know that can't even put their phone away.
Yeah.
I'm invited to a lot of screenings for movies, and when you go to a lot of these press and preview screenings, they don't want you to bring your phones in generally. And they'll check them for you, and they'll put them away for you. You don't have to like keep it in your car or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's multiple people that are like, well, I can't be without my phone. I'm like, well, you can't be without your phone. Leave it at home. Oh no, I can't do that. I need to be able to check it. What is there an emergency? What's going? And it's amazing the amount of people that have to have their phone because they just got to be able to check it. They're like, I can't even go 10 minutes without looking at my phone. What? But that's what's going on with the world right now, and I don't know that we're going to see that change because it's become part of what people do. More people probably check their phones than they do brush their teeth at this point. I would actually put money on that at this point.
I think you're probably right, and I think and the thing that
but people who are watching right now are probably like, there's probably people watching right now that'll be like, I'm not sure when I did brush my teeth last, but I know I just checked my phone. I'm checking right now. Checking my phone.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe, your phone will tell you. It gets me because there are enough people who are like that, who are old enough to have grown up without a phone. And yet you have a phone now, everything I do is pretty much on my, phone. I'm taking notes, I'm writing lyrics, I'm doing audio, I'm, scheduling things or whatever it is. But I had enough years of knowing how to put the phone down and just, live life and exist in a space without feeling that kind of addiction. As if you're 20 years old and you never lived in a world like that, okay, maybe I kind of get it. It's sad, but I get it. But if you're 40 or older, there should still be some muscle memory of not having a phone in front of your face all of the time.
One would think.
And I don't know if there is.
But a lot of it is, there's a lot of latecomers to the technology, and the people who are latecomers actually seem to be more addicted because it's still really new to them. Where to me, I've always been someone who's gravitated towards technology early on. So, I mean, look, I mess with my phone a lot. There's no doubt about it. But I sometimes will be like, oh shit, I left my phone. I mean, I didn't have Instagram for several months because they thought I was a bot. And they just came back, and I got a nice apology from Instagram, which I was surprised about. Or actually, Facebook apologized.
Yep.
But also, I was without some social media. Like when they kicked everybody off because of their names a couple years back, they didn't believe you if your name wasn't, Sarah, Michael, or John, or Rachel. If you had a name that was anything different than that, you were kicked off of Facebook unless you could show your ID.
Oh, great. Yeah.
That was in like 2014. Well, I refused to show them my ID. They're not getting my ID. But when I finally got a piece of mail from SAG-AFTRA, the union, which I'm not a part of it, but I'm SAG eligible.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a letter, and there's my name there, and I'll show you a piece of mail that comes in, and it's a business sent me mail. They're gonna know who SAG is, and I sent them a picture of that, and I sent a picture of myself, and it was like, and then my account came back on eventually. Wow. But anyway,
crazy.
But yeah, people have gotten, but that anyway, yeah. So entertainment's gotten short because I don't know if it's going to return. I'm dubious to feeling that entertainment will be ingested the same way. Although you have these superhero films, which are like 19 hours long, so who knows? It's like a mini series, but in one sitting. You know, you got this. They called it the Snyder cut of the Justice League. I mean, what are they cutting? There's nothing being cut.
No, no.
Like, I felt like I was sitting this thing for 8 years. I'm like, and I still don't even know what's going on. I'm like, I don't know. There's a bunch of computer bull jive going down, and I think there's a story somewhere in there. There's some interesting outfits. People did some good artwork, I think.
Sure. Yeah.
Good sound effects. Good sound.
Do you feel like you kind of alluded to this, your history with technology made you a little less prone to being wowed by it?
Controlled by it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I know the inner workings. I know what goes on. I know how things work. I mean, there's actually some really good documentaries about it. There's I saw a good one. It's on the tip of my tongue what it's called, but it's about the algorithms. About the social.
Oh shoot, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, social dilemma or something like that.
That's it. And but that's not news to me. I mean, I worked, as we talked about, Newgrounds. We were the first big entertainment portal on the internet, and we were in the top 100 of all websites. And
when did that start?
1998. I joined the end of 98, 99, and it was two of us, and it was an automated portal where you could upload your Flash game or Flash cartoon, and a community was built. And then I spawned from that onto doing something for a cartoon series that I was working on, and built another community. So these were social networks prior to things like Friendster and all that. I mean, you had the AOL and the GeoCities, and you had obviously the old BBS systems, and then but there weren't really any websites that were massive like ours. We had like millions of people on our thing, and no one had anything like that. And then eventually Friendster came around, which was really like the first big one. There was Makeout Club was another one, which became the guys from Deus Records. But eventually there was Tribe, and then eventually MySpace is what came about.
Right.
So I mean, I wasn't. Technology's always been a thing for me. I think because I've also done music with technology, and I've been into film and video and computers. I was always into computers since I was a little kid, learning how to try to program something on computers. And so that's always fascinated me, how things work. I would love to figure out how things work. I still do. I'm always researching. I'm constantly researching. I'd say in a week, I spend hours finding out about new technologies and how things work. I mean, that's just, and where things will go. I've always been interested in the future since I was a little kid. And I've been fortunate at least for me, to or maybe misfortunate, or to this unfortunate situation we're in the world today, where I remember listening to people like Frank Zappa in the early 80s about what they thought the future would be like, or going to like Epcot, or reading things about what the future would hold, and then doing other research about it and saying, okay, we're going to have something called a pocket computer that we're going to have in our pockets. It's going to be smarter than any supercomputer is now. Like there was the Cray computer system. And I was like, we're going to have something that's smarter than that thing. It takes up floors in a building. It's going to be in a pocket. Now, I didn't know it was going to look like a phone. I didn't even know it would be called a phone, because basically it's a computer. It's not even a phone. Yeah. It's a computer that has a phone on it. But I mean, the phones are awful on these phones. They're the worst. They're slow starting. They don't always work right. But anyway, they're pocket computers. And I remember thinking about that, and also about transportation, which the transportation thing never really took off, but there's a lot of reasons why transportation's been held back. And that's because of people making too much money on things like gasoline and all that, but now that's starting to go away, which is nice. You're seeing in different parts of the world where they've banned fossil fuels and all that, which is pretty amazing.
That's great.
And other countries have fallen suit to saying by 2025 or 2026 it'll all be electric or whatever. And you know, there's other issues that come along with electric operations for these vehicles too, but I do feel like it's a step in the right direction. There's a lot of, I'm not someone who's like, you know, I don't know. That would take us to a different world. But anyway, anyway, yeah, I'm not afraid of technology, and I'm not wowed by it and controlled as easily by it.
Yeah, and you know, I think it's,
And
you know, there are people who, if you live off the grid, fine, that's totally fine, whatever that means to you. But I think if you don't, if you're part of the world.